What's up, everyone? My name is REDRUP. This is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode, I'm joined by Douglas Robinson, who is the vocalist for The Sleeping. We talk about how the band's reunion came to be, putting out their first new album in 13 years, opting for the crowdfunding and independent route, his love for collecting vinyl, other projects that he has in the works, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number two, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number three, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Douglas Robinson, the vocalist of The Sleeping. How you doing, dude?
What's up, dude? How you doing? Nice to see you / talk to you again.
Yeah. I think last time was... you were over in Manchester during like one of the Night Versus tours, maybe like 2016, 2017, something like that.
I think it was like that, 2016, I think, something like that. Yeah, maybe 2017. Do I have the date on my tattoo?
No. Let Live, I think it was. And
it was. Oh, dude, 2013, I think.
Wow, a long time ago.
I think it was 2013 because I got this tattoo on the road when we were there, and it says 2013 Europe. So we were way off.
It was at you played at the Sound Control, and that venue's not even there anymore. That got turned into a block of apartments now. So
oh wow, really?
Yeah, it's gone.
I haven't been. I don't think I've been back to like UK or Europe since that run. So like I'm like, we're like dying to get back. The Sleeping's dying to get back, just because like I connect very heavily with the UK. You know, I always remember the first time I was there. I remember it was like raining and we're walking the streets on like a day off. And I just remember like running my like hands along the bricks of all the buildings we'd like walk by. And I just remember being like, man, like this is where like the Clash is from. Like I just remember just kind of like in this like young in the mind headspace of like, this is amazing. Like I can't believe I'm doing this for the first time, being out here. And I just love the vibe of the UK. Like I love the architecture. I love like the Sunday roast that I've had with people there, like just those kind of moments. And it's like, I can vividly remember really important moments of my life over there. So I like really miss it big time. So it's nice to even like hear you speak, you know, because it just makes me miss there even more, you know, honestly.
Yeah, well, you've got this new album out, which we'll talk about in a second, but hopefully off the back of that, you guys can come over here sometime soon. Totally.
Yeah, we're definitely planning it. I mean, you know, we're doing all this on our own again. I mean, on our own period for the first time ever. Like, you know, we're doing this again, but this time it's definitely way more like on our own. So, you know, we're building this back up into whatever it can be / whatever it was. And, you know, with that, like, we're definitely going back to the UK. I mean, I've already been talking to good friends out there trying to like figure out how to get us out there. Hopefully this year, if not definitely next year. We're starting to like get our team together as well. So hopefully sooner or later, you know, we have the right resources to get us back out there. But it's definitely like a plan of mine and of the band. And it's always been a plan of mine just because I love it there so much, you know. And of course, obviously I say that with my actual love for it, but also I just want to travel again on the road. But yeah, it's definitely in motion in terms of like, we got to get back there. So it's definitely going to happen sooner for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, like I say, this is off the back of The Sleeping album out in the world now. I feel like I'm becoming a ghost. The first Sleeping album in 13 years, which is, you know, insane. I mean, how does it feel to be having like a new record out in the world now?
It feels awesome, honestly. It's the first record, it's the first Sleeping record in 13 years, and it's the first one with the original lineup in like 17, which is crazy to me because you don't realize how long life goes by, you know, how quick it does, but also how long, like 17 years ago with Cameron, you know, like 17 years without him, but 17 years ago to have a record with him and to be back together. And, you know, it's crazy because we're all grown up and like, it's cool doing this again. You know, it's like, it's weird because it's almost like you miss so much of your quote unquote, like, I guess like youth or childhood without a person, you know, like Cameron being gone in like very pivotal moments of the sleeping as well. You know, it's very interesting to all be back together as like adults who obviously like we've never had bad blood. We've always been friends, but just to have each other back in this form of, you know, playing together and playing shows again and laughing with each other, you know, it's really cool. Obviously making a new record is one of my favorite. Making a record is one of my favorite parts about being in a band. I love recording. I want to produce records. So I really love the aspect of writing and recording a record. It's like probably my favorite part about being in a band. To have been able to do that again with the dudes I've made records with, and then to play off of this stuff. And, you know, it's cool. I'm seeing it way more as a human than as like a musician, where, you know, normally when we're in the regular rotation of making records for the label and things like that, you start to kind of get lost in that sauce a little bit. But to have been able to do this on our own terms with the same people I started this band with, or we started this band as, you know, the same people, it's cool. It's interesting because we all have such a different philosophy on life and approach on life and, you know, outlook. And, you know, it just feels good to kind of feel young again with your, you know, the people you have like seen the world with.
I think what makes this album extra special is the fact that you crowdfunded it with a Kickstarter. And I think your goal was 30,000, which you achieved in about 10 days or something like that.
Yeah, it was 10 days. We achieved 30,000 and it got close to like, I think it was like 50 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but it just kept growing. And, you know, it was so surreal to see it happen that fast. We didn't expect it. You know, we were hesitant. I and, you know, a couple others in the group, we like weren't sure about a Kickstarter. You know, I'll be the first to admit I was super hesitant about it. I was just like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like, it feels like you're like taking from fans, and like I never want to feel like that. And none of us did. But, you know, there were some in the band that were like, no, there's like a positive side to this. And after we saw how it happened, I was like, oh yeah, this is actually amazing. Like, the way people were resonating with the fact that like this is as much theirs as it is ours and helping us was like such a great feeling. And I didn't feel too much pressure on myself when I started kind of also settling with the fact that, like, you know, we recorded the record. We had recorded the record already,
right,
and it's pretty much like had it good to go, where we were just looking for basically like the recoup of it, just because we didn't want it to rely on the fans, in the sense that like we would never want people to like donate their hard-earned money and God forbid we don't make it. And, you know, obviously they'd get their money back, but like we didn't want people to feel like they had to rely on the goal happening for a record to be made. You know, like the goal was to always make a record, and anything that could help us towards that was like such a huge help. And it wound up exceeding the limit and doing it in such a short amount of time. And it's cool because I also feel really good about the way we did it too, because we're still paying for things on our own. Like, that money really helped us, but there was like still thousands and thousands of dollars out of our own pockets to like ship the stuff out to the Kickstarter fans. Like, you know, it really only recouped the recording of the record, which was such a big deal and help for us. But like, everything is still going out of our own pockets, you know, and we're, you know, eventually starting to see the recoup on that end. But, you know, everything came from like a very honest place. And I'm really happy that it like went the way it did, because I don't know, like for a while, a Kickstarter just didn't sit right with me. But then when I saw the good in it and saw the way it really helped, and obviously financially, yeah, but also the way it helped people connect with our band again on like a very personal level, that like made me super happy, because The Sleeping was never one of these bands that like tries to put ourselves on a pedestal or anything. Like, we're just people who love to play music and love to be a part of the culture of music. And, you know, we were always like really tight with our fans. And, you know, to see that again happen in such a quick amount of time, see how connected people still are with us after all these years, you know, it's a really cool thing. So very successful operation, I think, you know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you said that the album was already ready to go. It's basically just helping, like I say, recoup the cost of it all. Was there any kind of apprehension on your part in terms of like, I don't know, like, because you've been away for so long, 13 years, like, you know, obviously you've got strong fans, but was there kind of like a doubt in your head, like, do they care enough to kind of pay this amount of money, or, you know, to get to that kind of target?
Absolutely. I mean, I care about it every day. You know, I'm trying to not think about it so much like that. But the reality is, like, there are some people that probably don't care anymore. You know, like, everything changes, life changes, nothing stays the same. And we don't expect our fans that, you know, grew up, we don't expect anyone to like still resonate with us. And, you know, like we just never thought about it like that. We obviously love that people still do, but like, it was never, you know, we were never expectant of like, do people still care? Because the reality is, obviously, like, people grow and people change. Like, it would be weird if every single person still cared, you know, like, not weird negatively, just a surprise, you know, because everybody changes. My musical taste changes all the time. I still love bands I grew up on, but, you know, I don't go to shows as much. You know, I was dealing with some stuff for a while that I just didn't go out, period. And I'm like trying to get back to that. But, you know, you got to face the reality that nothing lasts forever. Nothing stays the same. So the best thing we can do to combat that was write a record that stepped away or evolved from who we always were. You know, like, I guess the only way you probably get still all these fans is to kind of go that like revival route and like play all your old records all the time and all this stuff. And that's a very cool thing. And props to people who do that. But we were just never a band that like wanted to do that. We wanted to make a record first that challenged us with no expectations other than just write a dope record for ourselves. And then whatever comes after that, we handle accordingly. Like, we wouldn't not do, a 20 anniversary tour, I'm sure, of like one of our records, but we didn't want to start that way, you know, because whether it's the smart thing to do business wise or whatever, we're not like that. You know, we just wanted to make a record. We wanted to get in a room, see if we even had the same chemistry we did, you know, and thankfully we did. And we made something like very special to us that we were like, oh yeah, okay, cool. We still got it. We still outdid ourselves. And now that has kind of opened the door for anything else that happens, you know, but our goal was never to approach it in any other way other than just like make a dope record.
Well, yeah, you mentioned chemistry there, and that's, you know, so important. The fact that even if you guys are all still like tight friends, like close friends, that doesn't necessarily mean that the same vibes are there when it comes to, you know, making music, because like you said, people change, people are different, the way they kind of identify with music as well as different. So that would also translate in terms of writing an album together. Yeah,
totally. You know, they're all my best friends, but, you know, we're all psychos, you know what I mean? And when we get together, the chemistry is still very much there, for better or for worse. You know, it's just what it is. But the fact that it didn't leave is awesome, because the push and pull of our chemistry is what makes our music. And all the chemistry could have changed for the better. Everyone be like, oh, what's up, man? This is so sick. And like that changed the way we write the music. You know, it's that push and pull of everybody's, you know, the juxtaposition of everyone's personalities. I think that's what still makes great music for any artist. You know, you need that kind of push and pull. I think when it comes to writing music, that obviously isn't formulaic in this like pop sensibility, but just more writing music that really wants to challenge you as an artist. I think you need that push and pull, no matter how extreme or minute. You know, you just need that to kind of give you the motivation to continue to write music that like challenges yourself and makes you feel like you're making the best part, you know, the best version of yourself to date on record. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So why is it that you decided to go down the crowdfunding self-release route? Because I imagine, you know, getting back together, you could have spoke to labels and got a label on board. Why did you decide to go kind of independent?
I think, you know, I think obviously the bad taste in our mouth with Victory, I think that was probably something that was the main catalyst to like doing it ourselves. We will never turn down a label if it's the right thing. But in that moment in time, it just felt right to us to just do it ourselves. You know, like, let's just control the narrative of the initial release. If someone comes along and re-releases it, you know, whatever the case, we can always approach that when it comes. But, you know, I think the main goal was just to do something that was for us and for the fans, you know. And I think, you know, to not rely on other people to get it out. I mean, obviously, the more distribution, the better. And obviously, we definitely need more eyes on the record, because it's still such an organic build we're trying to build this in a world where like social media has just been completely oversaturated for years.
Yes.
So how do we keep getting out there besides touring? And that's something we're still learning and trying to figure out ourselves. But, I definitely think the catalyst either way was just the fact that like it's ours right now. We were able to just at least put out something that was 100% exactly what we wanted, from the cover art to not having to rush, to put it out to, there was just so many variables that were like positive to doing it ourselves, and now it's just kind of building the brand back up, the elevation, so that's like kind of the next phase of it. And it's cool. Like it's out now. I don't care how it operates. Like I'm just less stressed that it's out. I mean, there is a ton of stress about doing this on your own. I mean, I was running social media for a while until we hired a team. I work in marketing over the years. I've just like understand marketing. And, I didn't want to do the social accounts all the time because I constantly obsess over it. I mean, social media is a 24/7 job, so it's like you're constantly like looking at the stats, the analytics, and like, that's not what I want out of being an artist and being in a band. Like, I don't want to care about that stuff until it's presented to me in a way where I could help make decisions on what to do next or whatever. But, at its core, I'm just me. I just want to make music and love it and have a great time. Yeah. So, the fact that it's out now and there's none of these people in our ears trying to, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, that's what's really cool about it. I feel like no pressure right now. Now it's just organically trying to take these next steps, these next tours, these next shows, these next conversations with labels or whoever, agencies. So, I mean, it feels good that it's out and it's in the way it's out, because it doesn't feel like there's this schedule to maintain. Because nowadays you can change your trajectory of your career. Now that can change in a heartbeat. 10 years later, this record could resurface due to like the next social media song, platform, whatever you want to call it. So
things like Stranger Things getting that Kate Bush song.
Exactly.
Which is later.
Insane. What I mean? Like, that's so crazy. And it's so cool to see that could happen to anybody, not just us or whatever. And, we're going to work hard all the time and we're going to make more music, but I think the cool thing about it is like, it's not so linear like it used to be, right? Like, label signs you, got to put it out, single, this, that. Like, the good thing about social media, which I don't think is always a positive thing, social media, but the good thing about it is like the way it is now, it's like, even though it takes a lot more in a sense, it also still takes a lot less for those things to catch on. So you just got to be right place, right time. And that could be 20 years from now. You know what I mean? Who knows? Years, whatever. So I think the no expectation aspect of this is why I'm like enjoying it a lot. I'm always driven to make something happen, and I'm always driven to like elevate the band in some way. But also at the end of the day, it's like, I'm happy with where we're at because we're doing it in a way that like just resonates with, what we wanted, which was to not really expect anything, and to be able to go on this sunny day tour, which was amazing. And to be able to kind of get these things that are just kind of happening as they come, because we're just letting things happen. I think it's like very special, and it makes me realize you don't have to do this in the way that everybody used to like make you.
Yeah. And that, like you say, like you've not got those kind of like restraints of a label, not that all labels are bad, but that they can kind of, put you into like, well, you've got a tour, you've got to do this now. Whereas you can kind of like choose your tours, that you can be a bit more selective. And like you say, you're an older and you're a different person now. Like, you can't just sleep on floors and in vans.
Totally, dude. I mean, we like felt that firsthand on this run, like every night, hotels. We have never done that in our lives ever. We would get a hotel that's like a 1-star like motel, just because like we had like a 30-hour drive or whatever, and now it's like, it's so funny because this whole well-being of bands, it's so crazy how detailed it is, because it always just goes right. Like the quintessential band doing okay on the road is a hotel. Like, that's how, being in a band isn't always all it's chalked up to be. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work. And back in the day, you're just young, you're a kid. Like, you don't think about how taxing it is on you unless you're like a self-aware younger person. I mean, I was just like a pedal to the metal, anything in front of me, I was like, let's do it. You know what I mean? And that took a toll on me as an adult now, all the things I grew out of and grew up, you know, thinking about. It's like, you know, I like this sense of even a hotel room is such a great thing for your mental well-being as an adult. Like, I don't think I'd be able to sleep on a floor of a hotel like ever again. And that's so funny because every band, the initial discussion of tour is like, oh, you got hotels now or whatever. So, yeah. You know, and obviously, thankfully, we're in a very different position in our career where like we can afford them. So, you know, I'm like grateful for that too. I mean, it feels crazy coming back to this many years later and being like, oh yeah, cool. We're getting paid what we're worth. And, you know, we're actually able to expense these things that back in the day were like unheard of. You know what I mean? So it's a different world. It's a different world. And there's a good and a bad to that. And I think a lot of the good is being self-aware enough to know that you're worth it. You know, you're worth every aspect of the self-care you can give yourself in your band.
So I want to talk about like how the reunion came to be a little bit. So you guys originally kind of parted ways in 2012, I think, to kind of focus on your own different things. You know, you went into Night Verses, you were with them for a few records, and then you stepped down in 2017. So at what point then did things kind of start to bubble up and be like conversations as to, you know, maybe we should pick up the sleeping again. Let's see what's going on here. Let's just dabble and see what we come up with.
So Cameron and I, you know, when we had like really reconnected, because there was never bad blood, but I just think there was a point of distance between everyone and Cameron because, you know, him leaving kind of obviously it's going to like do something to you mentally and upset you. But, you know, we always like stayed in touch, but we started talking like way more. And we did that reunion in like 2016, I think, you know, the end of 2016. So basically 2017, we did that reunion on Long Island and it was like amazing. But after that, we like didn't really think about it anymore. We're like, oh, it was so fun. What a great time, whatever. Right. So we did that reunion and then kind of time passed by and, you know, Cameron moved to Mexico. He was living in Tulum for a while. And, you know, everyone was like doing their own thing. Joe, you know, Joe's the drummer of that awesome, you know, electronic band, singer-songwriter band, Bob Moses. So Joe is like always very busy with Bob Moses. And, you know, Sal owns a bunch of restaurants, you know, and then I have my family. Sal has a family, you know, so there was just a lot of things that we didn't really need it. It was just kind of like, cool, great reunion. That was fun. All right, we'll see you guys around, you know, let's talk, keep in touch. But there was like some point where Cameron and I started talking a bunch and everyone, including myself and Cameron at points were like hesitant. But when Cameron and I started talking more, it was like, you know, we could write a record or let's just try it. Let's just see what happens. And no one really wanted to do that at the time. Like no one was really kind of like vibing with it. So Cameron and I were just like, yo, like, you know, what if you write a song and send it to me? And then I send it to, you know, send you back with vocals. And though I love that approach sometimes for certain art like bands that I'm in or whatever, it doesn't work with the sleeping. The sleeping, like we make songs in like 5 minutes in a room together. And it's like, that's the song, the first song on the new record. So, you know, to further along the story. So we were doing another set of reunion shows when we kind of started talking more a couple of years later. I think it was during the pandemic. So we were going to do these reunion shows at Irving Plaza. And we had spoke with our manager at the time. And he was like, yo, he's like, COVID's like going crazy. Everyone at Irving is coming down with it. We should probably cancel the show. And of course, we were like, absolutely. Like, we don't want anything to happen to anyone. So we canceled the shows, but we were still rehearsing in Amityville Music Hall, which is a bar Sal owned and our friends still own to this day. And they like had given us the space for just the band to be there and rehearse, you know, because obviously the bar wasn't being used because of COVID. So we were in there and that's where we had, you know, the phone call with our manager at the time. And we were like on the phone with him. We're like, yeah, let's cancel it. You know, we have to. But Joe flew from LA because he lives in LA. Cameron flew from Mexico. So it was just us four in a room. And we're like, you guys were just like, jam? Like, let's just jam. Let's just write a song. Like, fuck it. You know, let's just see what happens. So we jammed and we wrote a song in like 25, 30 minutes. Like within the hour we started. And that song is the first song on the record, Redder Than Red. It happened so fast. And we all instantly were like, oh yeah, that's literally how fast it takes us to write a song together. And like, there wasn't much production from the demos like done on that song at all. The structure is still the same. I'm almost positive it's like to a T, almost the exact same. So it just shows you like the power our chemistry has, like our band has as a unit. And that's what really like kind of springboarded us into making a new record. You know, I think we wrote that and everyone was really excited that we wrote a song again, you know, and we started keeping in touch more as a band and not so much like talking to one person and talking to the other to see how they're feeling. Like we're all in like our group message, like, oh man, that song's sick. Like you guys want to jam tomorrow? We're still here. Like, let's just meet back up in that room or whatever. So we just like kept, you know, we wrote, but then I think the next day or after Joe had left or someone flew away. So we stopped and we didn't write another song until we wrote the record when we got back in the studio. So I think the next night, you know, that first time we just hung out, I think because like Joe had left or something, but we were just like hanging out. And then we just started talking about like making a record and making it with Mike Birnbaum and Chris Bittner, the dudes who did our 3 other records. You know, they did Big Deep, Questions and Answers, and Believe What We Tell You. So we were just like, man, we should go back to them. Let's just make it like a family reunion with like no expectations. So we got into the studio and just with that one song of the direction or just, hey, this is what we first made, we wound up making all the other tracks. And that's what became the record. I mean, we were there for like a little over 2 weeks and we were just like, we don't want to write anything until we get there. Let's just get there, vibe out, have a great time together, and let's write a record. And it was really cool to do that again, too, because I am way more vibe. I like don't want to overthink music all the time. It's just not who I am. I have such an immense respect for people that do that. You know, like one of the greatest things about Night Verses is they have such a great middle of jamming and doing that feel part of being in a band, but also they can like break apart for like hours and hours on end. And I love that. I have such a respect for that. It's just very hard for me because I just always want the first reaction of something. And then I'll build off of that in like a way that's still fresh to me. Once I break something down for so long, I just feel like it's gone for me. And with the sleeping, you know, whether that's for better or worse, we're very like first instinct always, you know, and then we have the producers kind of work with us. And, you know, I love to produce. I had done a bit of producing on this record. We all did, you know, that's why it says it's like a joint produced record because, you know, this was something we were all able to produce, but, you know, it still came from like our first initial instincts and whatnot. Right. So, yeah, I mean, this record came from like a super holistic approach and that's the way I like thrive. And it was just like, it just hit all at the right time, which is the way we always operate. We've said no to so many things that have been offered to us prior to us getting back together because we just never wanted to do it unless it felt right to who we are. And now we have that. And it gives you this like excitement, this like, you know, revitalized kind of thing going on when you're able to like approach it from this level of like think later.
So when was that kind of written and recorded then? Because I think you did 2 shows at the Irving Plaza that you mentioned, but you mentioned, well, you kind of announced that the album was coming out in those shows. So it must have been like a little while back, right?
Yeah. So we had announced pretty long ago that we're like making a new record. I don't think it was ever like an announcement that was sort of like I don't think it was like a get ready kind of thing. I think we just kind of put it to the world. And then we did those 2 shows recently at St. Vitus and Amityville. And, you know, then we did the La Poisson Rouge show with Finch. And that's when we really started telling people like we have a new record coming out and really started like getting people ready. We were already pretty deep in the artwork at that point and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, it all worked out in the way that I think was the way it's all meant to happen right now. You know what I mean? Whether that changes down the line, something gets picked up, whatever the case. But I mean, this is the way we really wanted it. And it's been great. I mean, to do the numbers we're doing and, you know, Apple, we're like charting in a lot of Apple regions. And, you know, it's really cool to see it do all this with just us. And then, I mean, sky's kind of the limit from there. We're definitely going to be smarter with any approach, record label, whatever business aspect. But to be able to have started this as just like us against the world kind of thing was really cool.
I'm not sure if you remember, but we had like a brief conversation on Instagram in like 2018. I think you were kind of working behind the scenes on some other projects. You had like an instrumental project and stuff. What kind of came of them? Did they kind of influence, what you created in the Sleeping, or was it kind of completely separate?
It was separate. I have a couple projects that are going to be announcing really soon, and they're going to be pretty awesome. I mean, they're awesome always because I just love everything I do because I believe in it. But they're going to be very interesting projects. I think people are going to kind of trip out when they announce. But I have instrumental stuff I do like all the time, right. But I'm always in my own head. I have to when it comes to just me making my own music, I have to remember to have fun with it because I think so much that I just stop, right? But, I've been reading Rick Rubin's new book. I'm like trying to like get back into like the artist way, if you will. Like my approach as an artist to just have fun and not think about it. And hey, if I finish one thing, it's better than having nothing. So I have a lot of that happening too, but there's some projects that I'm going to announce soon with other people that I think are going to like get people very excited. And, honestly, it's like when you're young and you're in a band, you think like this is the only band you're allowed to have. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of far surpassed that period of time for artists now, but it's so interesting because, I remember in Night Verses when Eric started doing his like drum solo stuff, I would be like, oh man, like that's so dope. But like, come on, man, we got the band, like whatever. But now I'm like older and I'm like, fuck, man, why was I never doing that? I love that. I love seeing like your friends be so good at what they do and doing it everywhere else. It's like, it only helps your band as well, but also like, it just gets you fired up to know that like, you're not just in a band to be in a band, like you love music. And Eric taught me a lot about that and kind of gave me that sense of like, oh yeah, I want to do all kinds of things. I'm capable of so much musically. Like, why would I only just focus on, one band? Doesn't mean the band takes any less precedence than anything else I do. Yeah. But why would I just, subject myself to one thing? And I would want that for all the members of any band I do, because that is also how you create burnout, by just sticking to one thing, driving the entire time. Like, the Sleeping got burnt out. I got burnt out with Night Verses and vice versa. And I think it was just because we were just always like trying and trying and trying, where now I see the importance of how great it is to do many different things, and that's music or any other art. And it was really cool to learn that, especially from like the Night Verses dudes, because I mean, they're all still my best friends to this day. I love those dudes so much, and they taught me, they're younger than me in age, but they've also taught me so much. That's what music's all about. It's what experience, that's what life is all about. Just learning through experience, and trying to better yourself every day and whatnot. So I'm grateful for like all the lessons that I've learned throughout this crazy journey of life and music, and it's only making my music, in my opinion, better, and more honed in, or more, I guess like optimal and aligned with what I've always wanted as an artist myself.
Is there any kind of musical project that you'd like to do but haven't had the chance to do yet? Like any kind of style you'd like to explore?
Definitely. I want to like follow through with my like electronic kind of solo stuff, but I want to like make beats and have like a female artist, like a Bjork kind of vibe. Like I would love something like that. And I definitely think I'm going to get closer to that. I bought like a whole new setup to start recording and producing. So that's something I like really, really want to do badly, because, I'm grateful that I'm known for what I've accomplished and done in music. I'm so stoked on that. But like, I like so much more music than most people would even realize, you know what I mean? And obviously I'm not saying it like I'm the only person in a band that likes other music, but like Fiona Apple's like my all-time favorite artist. I'd love to create music that emulates someone like that. I'd love to link up with someone who happens to just be this amazing female entity of just power vocals and like songwriting, like structure, and just knows what they want. I would love to do something and team up with someone like that. So that's definitely like on my radar at some point, but it has to happen organically. I'm never going to try to like fish it out in some like, inauthentic way. I would love to meet someone and just be like, whoa, you're perfect. Let's rock. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, 100%, man. So I mean, you mentioned like the artwork of the record earlier, and like the aesthetics, not only in the cover art, you've got those splashes of paint all on the front, but even in the videos, like in the video for Tainted and Halcyon, you've got these like different color lights like flashing around, and of course in Halcyon you get drenched in paint as well, different color paint. Yeah. How did that kind of aesthetic kind of all tie together into the album? All these different splashes of different colors all over the place.
So that painting is from one of our friends. Her name's Katie. And basically, she had that piece for a while. She had created that. It was kind of, at first, I don't think there might have been paint colors. Maybe it was different. But that like vision of like a person, which I believe is kind of a self-portrait. I think it's her, but it's kind of androgynous on the cover. But you see this person like with their hands, kind of in their head, in their face, kind of resting. And, it just really fit the vibe of this record. The lyrical content is all about, and this is my first time really openly admitting this, even though, let's face it, all of my lyrics have always been in some way about my mental health, right? Therapeutic. But this time was really, this is the first time I ever really admitted this record is about like the self-awareness of my mental health. I have like a shitload of issues, that I've been working through for years now. As a human being, we're all human, but this record really touched on the fact that like, I am aware that I have, just like anyone else, problems, like we all have our issues when it comes to our mental health. And, just her image right off the bat was exactly what I saw, that I was like, I want this. I really wanted, and obviously we're on a podcast, so I'm trying to say this as respectfully as I can, but like, it almost looks like someone's brains are being blown out of their head on the record. But with the colors, I didn't want it to look like that the brains were being blown out in like some violent way. Yeah. It's just more like, a metaphor for like how many thoughts are just exploding and swirling in your head. And the colors, the vibrance really added to like, some aren't always bad, but the chaos of what you see is, because you can never stop thinking, your brain's always on, it never shuts off. And that's a lot to bear, like I am a very over analytical person. I overthink every day. I have so many, anxieties and stresses in my life. And, I always try to work through those throughout the years with help and whatever, but I'm not perfect and I'm still learning. And that I wanted that to be on the record, in its own way that can relate to anybody. So that, the record, it's so vibrant, and the colors with the videos, they're meant to be vibrant, but also in a very chaotic way. It's meant to kind of show the push and pull of the thoughts that swirl in our head all the time. And, just the way it looked like the head was exploding, it didn't feel super violent to me. It felt more chaotic. And that's like what I really resonated with. So that is kind of what the meaning of the cover is. It is meant to depict some explosion, but it looks physical, but could also just be mental. If you really look at the cover, you can kind of take it however you want it. And that's what I really wanted about the cover and the direction of the art, because the whole record is about the push and pull of what goes on in my mind all the time.
Well, what was it like in that Halcyon video being covered in the paint? Like, I imagine it was just such a pain to wash it back off again.
Yeah, it was like water-based, so it wasn't like terrible. We only had like basically one take to do it, but
definitely.
We worked with a couple other like moments. But honestly, it was like it was really fun making that video, because normally, in our other videos, we would all just be like drinking and partying and having like a great time. And it's like, all right, let's make a video. Where this was like, I don't really drink much anymore at all or anything. So like this video, I really like tapped into the lyrics each time the playback was happening. I was like really tapping into what the song is about, which, Halcyon, the definition of it is basically denoting a point in one's life where they were much happier. And, fast forward to the present time of the world where like the world's just a lot heavier, and, that's what that song is about. I guess you could say it's about like, I didn't write it for any nostalgic purposes, but just the remembrance of how good life used to be, and now it's much harder. It's difficult. Everything is a work in progress. When back in the day, you just kind of like lived,
Done with the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to really when we were making this video, I was able to like really tap into the lyrics each playback and really connect with the song. And that was kind of the first time, because we hadn't played it live yet or anything. So that was kind of the first time the song was like hitting me the way it would like kind of on stage. So I had a really great time. You know, as painful as that can be, it was still amazing to feel that, because what I write is always true to who I am. And that part was really interesting, but it was also a lot of fun because one of Sal's kids were there. His son was there. His wife was there. You know, we were all just like having a good time making this video. And, you know, Sal's one of the dudes pouring the paint on my head. Right. And he was, I can't wait to fucking do this, because, you know, he's my best friend. So it's like, it was cool. I was like looking around going, wow, we're like actually doing this again. But we've always been a family, but we're just more self-aware now. And, you know, there was just a lot of fun in that video. Our friend Lux styled it. She's a really good friend of ours. And like, she was there with us. Like, it was cool. It felt like we were having a good time and not just thinking about like, what's this going to look like or whatever. You know, we were being very experimental with the director, James. And, you know, it was just cool to like have fun. Honestly, it was a very fun video because, you know, it just felt good to do it again with people you love.
So away from the band, I know you're an avid vinyl collector. I know people can't see it, listen to the podcast, but I can see a bit of a collection behind you, including a Mars Volta box set I can see in the back. I think that is, isn't it?
Yep. That is the Mars Volta box set. It's so funny. I like didn't really have much money when that came out. Right. And I was like texting my brother-in-law and I'm like, yo, I think I have to do this. Like, I think I have to buy this. It was like $550. And it's like, you know, when you have a family, you know, when you're married, it's like, that's a lot of money, you know, even if you have it, it's like a lot of money in the sense of like what you got to do around the house or whatever. So I remember there was maybe like about 10 minutes of them being on sale. And I was like debating and I'm like, nah, you know, and I was like, no, fuck that, man. I want this thing. Like, I'm going to buy what I want. You know, it's not like I spend my money on booze or anything like that or anything like, you know, and I don't buy clothes for myself. Like, I literally just spend my money on records whenever I can. So I was like, this is one of my favorite bands ever. At the Drive-Ins, one of my favorite bands ever. Sparta, one of my favorite bands ever. I'm like, why would I not buy the Mars Volta box set? It's members of my favorite band growing up. And I'm just like, I have to do it. So you know, they wound up becoming not that exclusive, you know, as the years progressed. But I was like, in the first like maybe 20 minutes, I was one of the people. I was like, I just got to buy it. Like, fuck it, I don't care. And I love it. I mean, I still listen to it all the time. It sounds so good. I have a bunch of Mars Volta like first pressings of the records that are also in the box set. Right. And these definitely, like, you can tell they're like flat in the sense that, like, of course they're like, they've already been put to vinyl and they're just being like remastered to vinyl in the box set, but they do sound much better. You know, like, you hear a lot more things coming from here and there. Like, you can still tell it's like, you know, a digitized, you know, MP3 or whatever file that goes on, but it's way more clearer than even the first pressings I have of a bunch of the Volta records. So I'm a big fan of it, and it's like something I listen to like regularly.
How many do you think you've got in your collection now? Do you know? Have you got like a Discogs telling you?
I have close to 1,000.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, and I started collecting in the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah, like my mother never saved anything. I have no baby pictures, nothing, right? Like, my mom just threw away everything. So I come from a family, or a household, I should say. I come from a household where I never understood the value of holding on to things. We were kind of surviving our way through my childhood, you know, right. Kind of in her unfortunate circumstances, and being obviously a part of the family, or being a part of these unfortunate circumstances. Like, I never really was able to even collect ththings anyway, because we were constantly moving or going through changes or whatever. So I never really had the value of what it meant to like hold on to things, right? I have like one shoebox of Night Versus stuff. Like, I don't even have like the sleeping stuff of all the great things we've accomplished. Right. And even Night Versus, I don't have a lot of that stuff either. I have like a little shoebox of things I remembered to keep, you know, save and keep a hold of. But now, you know, during the pandemic, I was like, it's so crazy to me. Like, I obsess over music every second of my life, and I'm constantly listening to music on my, you know, iPhone. And I was like, why? I'm like, as a lover of music, I always love the artwork. You know what I mean? Like even when I'm listening and streaming, I'm always clicking on the cover to look at the cover.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, why don't I ever collect anything musically? Like it means so much to me. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And right then and there, you know, everyone kind of had their moments of clarity in the pandemic. You know what I mean? There were certain things people like really connected with that they normally wouldn't really think about. And I really had a moment to myself, like, I cannot believe I don't collect music in a physical form. Like that's actually like goes against everything I feel as a musician. So I started collecting in the pandemic, and I was buying multiple records every day. I mean,
Wow.
I'm almost at 1,000, and I've only been collecting since like the middle of the pandemic. And that, you know, I work at a shop. I'm around records every second. All I want to do is consume vinyl. And, you know, I was so fortunate that happened the way it did, because I couldn't imagine now not being a collector of anything. You know, like I'm not someone I don't want to branch off into these other types of collecting. Like I found the one thing that I love so much, and now like I don't stop, you know. And to be able to be knowledgeable of vinyl collecting on a other level, you know, in terms of a higher level with working at a shop and understanding different variants and, you know, different covers and what they mean and labels and anniversary pressings and all this stuff, like whatever, you know, like the fact that I found something that I connect with on such a deep level makes me like so happy that it happened the way it did, because with all my life changes, who would have known if I would have been able to hold on to everything at those points in my life where I had to move all the time, or, you know, my mom was constantly having to like clear the house for certain reasons. Like, I don't know if it would have ever resonated with me the way it does now. So I'm like so happy I found it, because I sit here every night sometimes, or I won't come in here for like a month. But when I do, every time I'm back into a record, it's like cathartic for me. So it's something that I'm like very happy I found, because it's again a huge, massive part of who I am. And like, you know, it just means so much to me that I can't imagine life without it at this point.
Have you got any particular like holy grails or white whales that you're proud of that you've got?
I do, yeah. I told someone this on the last podcast I did. I'm like, I always feel so bad because it's always like the same one. So if anyone listens to my multiple podcasts, probably like, damn, show some different stuff. But yeah, I do. I have a bunch of holy grails. My main holy grail of all time that I cannot wait to get, I'm like methodically waiting for the right copy, is Tool Anima First Press.
Okay.
Like a mint one goes for like over $2,000.
Right.
So, you know, I have to really know when the right one comes along for me to get. And sometimes I also still wait to see if it ever comes through to my shop beforehand, because I can definitely get that in a much more painless way if it comes through to my shop. But I'm prepared to do it. But that is my all-time holy grail. I don't have at the moment, but I have some really cool ones that I'm really proud of. Speaking of Mars Volta, so obviously I have the box set. It's got the entire discography, including those demos and the unreleased and all that stuff. But I have this first press promo edition of Francis the Mute. Nice. It's actually technically a repress, but they pressed it in the same year. So I believe it's considered a first press. But basically, I think this was only limited to like maybe 500 copies. If not, then like 1,000, maybe 2,000 max. But I think 500 copies. But basically, it comes in this like, I guess like nylon or I don't know, like PVC kind of slip. But it has Francis the Mute inside. It's still sealed. I won't open this one. But it has Francis the Mute inside. And it's all the glow in the dark variant. All of it glows in the dark. But it also has the unreleased song that never made it to the record, the title track, Francis the Mute. And basically, you can either buy an earlier version of only the unreleased glow in the dark for like $300. But this, it's much more expensive than that. But it has the true glow in the dark unreleased song in it. So last record store day, like the most recent one that passed, they released Francis the Mute, the single. So I bought that on record store day. So now if I ever want to listen to it, I have it. But as a collector, I won't open this because it's like still sealed. But it has the like original glow in the dark variant of the unreleased track that never made it to the record. So this is something that like I really pride myself on. I also have, this is first press Deftones White Pony. Basically the same thing. I think this was limited to like 1,000 or 2,000. but this is the promo edition of White Pony. Same thing, PVC kind of like cover, but inside the records are red. They've never made that colorway since. I also have the Hot Topic pressings of the Deftones, of the Deftones records, which are like extremely hard to find, or like just expensive in general. Maybe not as hard to find, but they're still very limited. But that White Pony for the Hot Topic pressing is like a gunmetal silver. But this was one I've always wanted, and it came through to my shop, and the owner was like, "Yo, I got something." Oh, actually, no, this is the owner of my shops. He wound up having it,
right.
And I've never listened to this. He's like, "I want you to have it because I know you like love the band." So he gave it to me, and this is like a super crazy gift that anyone would give to someone because it's not cheap. And honestly, I listen to it all the time. Records are meant to be listened to. The only reason I don't open that Francis the Mute one is because I already have all the contents in it.
Yeah.
But this one, I was like, if I ever get this, I'm opening this and I'm listening to it, and it came through. So I listen to this regularly. The reissue, that's the Hot Topic pressing. It sounds just as good. I like kind of put them up against each other. But yeah, I mean, this is like one of my holy grails that I got that I'm like so happy to have in my collection. I have every copy of At the Drive-In Relationship of Commands. I have like the RSD versions, which do not sound that good.
Right.
But I have the original press of Relationship of Command. And I love this record so much. It's like a staple in my entire life. And the first press of this sounds so good because it sounds like exactly the way Ross Robinson recorded it. And, Night Verses we did when I was in the band, the last record we did together, we recorded with Ross. Yeah. And to hear all these stories about the making of this record, that's why I was always like so ready to like find this in its like original form, because the record store day reissues of this, they just don't sound as good. Like you can't really hear Omar's guitar. That kind of like fades in and out. But this pressing, it's like, it sounds like you're in the room, and recording with Ross, I know he stands in the room with you. I just needed it. So I have every copy, but to hear this, it's like very special to me. And it's not so much a holy grail. I mean, it goes for a lot of money, but it's not like the most expensive, but it is something that like, I listen to regularly. And every time I listen to it, I'm like so happy. I'm a big fan of Failure. And a few years ago, they released a box set with their discography, and Ken Andrews like mixes, and he's a producer. And so he remastered all of this stuff. Right. So like, I really enjoyed when they put this box set out, like they were talking about the box set, and they're like, the first pressings, picture the records being like windows, and the first pressings, you can still see through the window, but they're pretty dirty and dusty. He's like, this box set, you're going to hear the songs like you're looking through like a crystal clear window. Right. And, Ken Andrews and like Failure, like say something like that. They're so particular about their sound that you're like, this is going to be a great box set. So I bought it, and the records sound so good. So good. And I have first pressings of these records, Fantastic Planet and Magnified and stuff like that. But to hear it the way that they like wanted it, I am a firm believer, because I have this conversation about records all the time with people, and people will be like, what's your take on like first pressings versus reissues and things like that? It's like, I'm always out for a first pressing, but I know what it's like to be in a band. And like 20 years later, you hear one of your records and you're like, man, I wish we did this differently, or I wish it sounded like this and whatever. And, I always will appreciate a first press, but like if a band remasters, something to the way they want it to sound, I'll always go for that, because that's the way they want to hear it, the way they've always wanted to, and maybe just didn't have the time or didn't have the effort or resources at the time to make it sound the way they wanted. We're in a different world now, and I still collect first pressings, but if I see something that's like remastered by the band for like an anniversary edition or something, and you can really tell they have their footprint on it, I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? So this is like a perfect example of that. When this box set got released, I was like, I need this because I know it's going to sound insane. And it sounds so good. And there's a booklet in there with a bunch of write-ups about the records and certain artists in here that like talk about what the records did for them and whatnot. So it's just like a really cool collector's piece to have.
Yeah, your collection's definitely bigger than mine. I've got about 300, but I guess my the one I'm kind of most proud of is I've got, Colouring Book by Glassjaw.
Nice.
The way they put it out was it's kind of split into three, if that makes sense. So it's like three colours. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one of them too. Yeah.
It's just so crazy like they just did it like that. I've never seen obviously any other band do that.
Totally. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do it either. It's it's a little bit of a pain, but once you get it like lined up and stuff, it's fun. I mean, it's also fun, right? Like, who cares? Like, records are meant to be listened to, and I think it's cool to give you kind of like a way you have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Like Nine Inch Nails, I think it's Broken. I think, yeah. So the definitive edition of Broken, the Nine Inch Nails EP, on the other side of it, if you play it in reverse, it plays, I can't remember what song, but it plays a song off Downward Spiral, but you have to play it in reverse.
Right.
So like you have to, first of all, have that function on your player, and you have to start it at the end of the record so it plays backwards. And it's fucking awesome. I found that out one night at like 4 a.m. I was listening to music all night, and I like flipped it over and it was started playing in reverse. I'm like, oh, I think I have to like fuck with this. So I did it, and then I was just like, oh, that's so dope. You know what I mean? Like, no one told me that. No, it doesn't say it on the records. I would love first pressings of those. They're just super expensive, but they're also definitive edition, apparently remastered by Trent. He wrote a whole note on those too. So once again, I bought all those because I'm like, I want to hear Trent's remastered version. I mean, the dude is like an audio maniac, he's like an essential audio like wizard, so they sound really good, but yeah, like I just like things like that. I think it's cool to do interesting things on, interesting takes on records, and, obviously colorways are always cool. I'm all about people doing interesting things. This record, our record, was really special to me because I curated the vinyl, like I was the one that like matched the colors, and, as a lover of vinyl now, and as someone who works for it, it was so amazing to do all that, because that's like my dream. I would love to like one day own a shop or a pressing plant or whatever the case may be. So, it's really nice to have a hand in that, because now I look at our records and I'm like super proud. I'm not that I wouldn't be, but like, we've never been a vinyl band. Victory released Questions and Answers on vinyl without us even knowing. It's not for lack of loving music. It's just, we didn't think about it like that. And then I got older, and that's where my path led me to, like, collecting vinyl and really giving a shit about it. So now to have a hand in it, I'm like, man, I only want to always do vinyl. I want to always just like release anything on vinyl. Anything I do, I get a vinyl release,
Well, you said just like dropping the album, then obviously that's happened. You've toured with Sunny Day Real Estate not too long ago. What else is kind of planned for the Sleeping so far for 2023 and I guess 2024 as well?
Yeah, we're kind of starting to really like make our way through our plans, because one of the downsides, or one of the differences, I guess you can say, about doing this all on our own is like, we don't necessarily have a crazy plan right now. It's just kind of like, okay, what's next? We got to figure it out. And right now we're in that stage of figuring it out, but we have a ton of really cool opportunities we're looking into. We're definitely trying to get back overseas. I think one of those questions you had, a question you asked that was a great question was like, does it feel weird in this state where you feel like, do people still care? It's like, we don't know if anyone still cares overseas. You know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of fans that reach out, but like, that's something you have to like really bite the bullet and figure out. Yeah, there's numbers, and we're seeing the numbers on our streaming platforms, but like, you really got to go for it. So, we're trying to find ways to sprinkle our way back over there to see if there's like something that'll blossom. Like, oh yeah, people still do care here or whatever. So, that's definitely something we're planning on. Definitely trying to figure out like what's next in terms of getting overseas and what support we're going to do. Should we headline? I mean, there's a lot of things that we're working through now, as this new revitalized entity, you know what I mean? Like, how do we approach everything now? So there's a lot of stuff that's in there for us. We just got to like kind of cut through and weed through everything to see.
Well, I want to take a moment to thank you, Douglas, for taking the time to speak to me.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. Nice seeing you, man.
Yeah, it's good to reconnect after, so many years.
Yeah, totally.
Hopefully you guys come over to the UK soon. And if you come, near where I am, and I can show you some great record stores and great places to eat some vegan food as well. There's loads of good stuff around here. So
absolutely. So, for the love of God, show me. I'm super down.
Before I let you go, have you got any final words, anything you want to say, anything you want to plug? Floor's yours.
Yeah. Everyone in the UK, miss you. Please check out our new record, I Feel Like I'm Becoming a Ghost. You can follow us on Instagram at The Sleeping Official. Same goes for Twitter or X or whatever all that shit is. Keep an eye out. We're definitely trying to get over there ASAP and, you know, spread the word on our new record and just kind of keep the awareness going. And we'll see you soon. And we're excited to do this again, you know.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, thanks again. Take care of yourself. Keep in touch. And yeah, hopefully see you here very soon.
Hell yeah. Dude, thank you. Say hello whenever, man. It was really nice talking to you.
You too, dude. Take care of yourself.
Right. Later.
Bye.
Bye.
And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.